morning. And so we all kind of did the Rochambeau for who was going to have any kind of impacts. So I think all of us are pretty familiar with that second Moderna shot having to varying degrees. And I made the decision early that I wasn't going to have any impacts whatsoever other than a sore arm. And thankfully that turned out that's what it was. For Danae, unfortunately, that wasn't what it was. And so we've had about 6 folks that went on Thursday morning that continue to have the residual today. So I'm going to go ahead and walk us through a couple of updates. So again, as we move through, we're always open to feedback, but rather than kind of rehashing any bills that haven't had either significant amendments or movement, we'll save that portion for kind of the ask and answer period, if that works for you all. So the big news, of course, is the long bill update. So they had we talked a little bit about it last time, but it's always a marathon session. And it was about 12 hours of debate. Interestingly enough, as it came out of the House, it was bipartisan. By the time it got to the Senate and came back, it passed on almost a party line vote, save one Republican that begrudgingly said that it was part and parcel of accumulation of work, and so they voted for it. But it was straight across the board on the D's and R's. So there were about 100, a little bit over. There was over 150 amendments. There was about 153 amendments. Fast and furious. They ultimately agreed on 18 of the amendments. So when it came out of the JBC, the budget was 34 million. It's now been increased to 55.4 million by adding on those 18 additional amendments. And of course, now the big question is how where the money's going to come from. So every year, the JBC sets aside a fixed amount, and generally they back into it. So they know what's in the amount to pay for the amendments. And then they have a whole additional conversation if it goes over that amount. The last decade, it has never been over that amount. So again, they kind of back in knowing what that end goal is financially, and then they make the modifications from there. On this one, it didn't work that way, and primarily because the influx of all the federal funding that's coming in really does, it just changes things significantly. So there was a $50 million set aside to fund the bills that passed. So they're going to have to figure out where those additional funds come from. That'll continue to be an ongoing issue, but the fixed amount is the 55.5 million for the budget. Continuing to look at, you know what, I'm gonna let me do this. I will, instead of me just having this and sharing it later, let me see here. Bear with me for just a moment. And I will share my screen here. And then I'll take it off as we do the Can everybody see that? Yes. Okay, good. Environmental and sustainability. Danae briefly went over these at the on Tuesday. So I won't go through each one of those. Long-awaited transportation funding continues to be long-awaited. So next week will be week 2 when they said a week or two. So everyone is continuing to anticipate what that looks like. The big one this week, of course, is all of the continuing conversation about the Front Range passenger rail. We'll talk about that one in just a minute. This one, this is the 238 will create a special district. You can see there, plan, finance, build, field all of those questions. Not unlike any other transportation capture area, people within those boundaries would have to pay for it. Taxpayer Bill of Rights, of course, you got to ask if you're going to increase any taxes. So, it's the conversations throughout this week, and I'm sure Devin and the mayor can speak to it more, but the primary question is rail going to generate a different level of tolerance for an increase in taxes than basic roads and bridges do? Is the pain point significantly different, and or do people have a vision of what could actually happen with the rail? So we all know that it's transportation funding for infrastructure has been on the losing side for a decade. Still not a real firm grip. Go ahead, Mayor.
But I mean, Jennifer, I guess I want to make the comment that the reason why I'm getting so interested right now is that for the first time ever in my life, the federal government's trying to set up a new transportation system that involves rail with 31 different deals. And so it's bigger than your comment of tolerance. It's something coming from the federal government with the full force of the Biden administration. And so it's something, I think it's more than just tolerance to the taxpayers. It is the legacy that maybe President Biden wants to leave. I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's the feeling I get. And I've never said that in the 20 some years I've done public policy.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor. I don't mean to minimize it. You clear a lot of we'll talk about the federal dollars that are coming primarily for, again, that the Building America part and the commuter rail. Amtrak is the player, right? I mean, that's kind of the end make or break. The fact that they may very well be seen as the hero in all this. And so prior to that, this is really the first year that Amtrak has stepped in. And of course, this is what they do, right? So yeah, so Biden's been working with Amtrak for 30 years. So yeah.
Well, and rail is a big deal to the governor, and that's not lost on me either.
Yep. Yeah, and it has been.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, this is not just it. I mean, he's been a Northwest Rail fan for since the beginning.
Yep. But in addition to that, it is. I mean, again, it's a tolerance of the taxpayers up and down the Front Range. They too. So it's a combination of funding. Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add that in the bill language, it's suggesting a 0.8% sales tax.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. That's in the Front Range bill.
Yes.
In
the one that dropped this week.
Yes, on Friday.
Okay, or last week. Yeah.
And so the primary questions that we get is how much is it going to cost? So again, it's difficult. 1.5 billion to 2.5. seems like a pretty significant gap. And to the mayor's point, so that's the overall cost that will be then divided between federal, state, and regional partners. And then
Well, I mean, but the entire Front Range Rail, didn't they come up with, Sarah, like 12 billion? Isn't that their latest number?
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely more in that magnitude. I'm not sure where this bullet came from, but I can dig into it a little bit more. It may be more around some of the investments we need to make in order to be, you know.
So Jennifer, the 0.8 would be for the entire Front Range Rail.
Yeah, so Sarah, this was from Ledge Councils for the upfront costs.
Great. Yeah, exactly. So I think the investments that we need to make to be attractive for federal funding.
Okay.
To bring in that
draw it down.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think one of the reasons too they use that number is because if they continue to come out with the 12 to 15 billion, the likelihood that people are really going to think that this is tangible. So incrementally, they want to have those amounts.
So I'm pretty sure Cal passed away, but he lives on in somebody else's spirit then?
More than you know.
That, I mean, for everybody who doesn't know, Cal was the RTD director that led to Fast Tracks, and his numbers were squishy.
Yeah, and well, that's a great segue. So then 1186 is the RTD. It opens up the restrictions and related powers of RTD. 60-40, right? Some people say, geez, they have got to have oversight, and others say, you know, we are in a new world now, and with their accountability task force and all of the other items that they have with regards to transparency, opening that up so it's not a board of 12 individuals making the decision. It really does open RTD up to the state for conversation, structure, organization, implementation, amount of fares, ridership, all of those various components. DEI, you can see 199. I just got off a call actually with leadership through the city and counties, talking about what 199 kind of what the bottom line looks like. So the real driver is that it takes the prohibitions off of the state and locals to provide public benefits. And all of that, the requirements that come with it. So it's not just from a benefit perspective, as in dollars benefits. It's kind of, again, across the board. Oh, let's see. We can do Q&A on all this too. I just want to make it through so we have plenty of time for questions and answers. Todd is on the line. He can talk a little bit about 188. This one, I'm just surprised that we haven't done this before. It's a real reminder of how far behind in the conversation and implementation we are with regards to equity. So this is a pretty exciting one. Housing. This one has been on the board for a while. This is the promoting affordable housing units. We've talked a little bit about that one before. 1054 housing public benefit verification requirements already done. 117. This is we've had conversations about this one before. Councilmember Tessier testified on this one. We are further ahead, significantly further ahead in many respects with regards to this amendment, but it's a great way to provide an equalizer kind of across the state for those governments that have not really made it as far as we have with regards to kind of the inclusionary piece. Oil and gas. Let's see, we talked about 108 already. It's about the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC, and safety inspections. Let's see. There's been a lot of conversation on 1264, which is the workforce development, increase worker skills. A lot of the federal funding that's now pouring into the workforce coffers. This has been being drafted for almost about 6 weeks now, anticipation for those funds to drop. Federal government's investing a lot of money throughout the US, and then the states are expected to pick up and run with the implementation, adding what they consider to be a small investment state by state. Our investment is 25 million. And it's upskilling. So it's for unemployed folks. It's not unemployment benefits. It's to get underemployed and unemployed, retrained. Upskill has been verbiage in the workforce arena for about 5 years now. So really transferring, they use upskilling a lot when you're talking about transferring from into a more technical world, into a with light manufacturing, what some of those skill sets are, and really taking those employees that are still in the workforce, have anywhere from 4 to 20 years left in the workforce, and making sure that they have 21st century skills. This is a pretty cool bill. Let's see. 199. This is, again, this bill should sail right through. They are, it's in the same line with equity and ensuring from the perspective of state and local benefits. It repeals a lot of the existing requirements. This one is let's see, I'm going to go back up here to this one here. We have it in 2 places. I was going to say, geez, didn't we just have this conversation? This was part of the bill that I just had on the leadership skills. So we talked about the 199 already. We just have it in 2 different places. The Metro District bill, that bill started as a 274-page bill. They've now narrowed it down to just over 100 pages. It's still in the waiting. As council knows, as we discuss metro districts, it can be complicated. And really the realization from Ledge Council. So we talked a little bit about last time, if you can remember, that Legislative Council, they're the bill drafters. And so they know the technicalities and the complexities, not only of the bill language, but the implications with regards to the finances of implementing that bill. So it continues to be stuck in Ledge Council, trying to really figure out what the unintended consequences are. It's less now we're getting this influx of big dollars for infrastructure. And the metro districts, as we all know, we've heard continuously over the last 3 months, that it's the only way that development can afford to pay for really expensive infrastructure is metro districts. So now with the influx of infrastructure funds, there's kind of a recalibration between who pays for what and when and for how long. We are hearing grumblings this morning about a special session regarding the federal stimulus dollars. Everybody's, it sounds fantastic. And then again, having the infrastructure in place to really absorb those funds, spend those funds, account for those funds, it's something that everybody is taking not only seriously, but again, from a long-term, the long game approach. And the more requirements and restrictions that are placed on the front end require those additional conversations about expenditures and reporting mechanisms. So there is conversation about coming back in September. So I think I said before that June 12th, the session actually ends. And then, of course, that's when the majority of funds are anticipated to hit, at least the first batch. So looking at September 21 for a special session to come back in before those funds are spent. And with that, let's go ahead and we'll field some questions. Let me. I'm going to stop sharing just for a minute because it makes it, as the mayor said before, it makes it hard to see anybody that has their hands up with for conversations. Devin, yeah, or yes, Devin.
So thanks for all the information. So one of the questions that I have, and Todd and I actually talked about this yesterday with regards to the ranked choice voting bill that's coming forward. With the long bill moving forward and them already having a hard time encapsulating all of the bills that have already been approved with money, and now how does that determine bills that haven't passed yet, such as that ranked choice voting bill? Is it at a certain point where they say, sorry, we don't have enough money anymore and tough luck?
No, and that's such a great question. And it took me, I have to say, probably like 7 or 8 years to really figure out what that process is, because you would think that's exactly what happens, but they are much more they're much more inclusive than that. So other than the late bills, that's what really from the late bill status. So for example, the metro districts has already gotten late bill status. So during the legislature, when you have, we all know that they get 5 bills apiece. And then if leadership indicates that because you're not quite ready, you get late bill status. So they have 3 buckets, Devin. They have bills that have passed. They have bills that they anticipate passing. And then they have a bifurcated piece of bills that have been introduced with a fiscal note, but probably won't pass. And then the late bill status bills. It's the late bill status bills that fall into the category of your last question of, will they get funded or will they not get funded? It makes it much more difficult, and that's why no one wants late bill status. But for those bills that are in the pipeline right now, they've anticipated what that's going to cost to implement. That's just a long answer to a short question.
No, I appreciate all that information. That's helpful because that's definitely one of the things that, specifically that bill I'm watching to see how it impacts what the timing of that is. I mean, obviously we have a conversation on Tuesday about that. But if we were to move forward, the ordinance timing in which that comes before council and that bill passing is going to make a difference in terms of money and logistics and what that looks like. So, so I appreciate the information on that.
You bet. Mayor?
Well, I just want to bring up the transportation bill because the Metro Mayor's Caucus has gotten actively involved in that, as I'm sure CCAT and others have. And that, my impression was that Sarah Hughes, who I've seen throughout my, my public policy, she's pretty prominent. She works for for Jared's administration, right? Jennifer, what is her job?
She's not an appointee.
Anyway, she was on the Metro, and her husband Craig Hughes was Bennett's campaign manager. So I've known the Hughes for 12 years. So anyway, so Sarah was on the call yesterday, seemed to be in the know, My impression is that our continuous, and Devin had brought this up as well, that there's not enough funds for multimodal in the bill, and that they're not worried about the non-attainment and stuff. The Metro Mayor has decided to go ahead and take that head on. In Sarah's comments yesterday, who seemed to be involved in the drafting completely, what was it? It sounds like maybe the governor is going to respond back, and her response on when the bill is going to be available was like 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
that's what
I don't know if anybody's heard anything
long-awaited.
different in the last. I don't know if anybody's heard anything different than 24 hours, but it sounded to me like the governor was hearing the metro area's concerns, and I just wanted to bring that up. And I don't know if Sarah's heard something different. She wants to chime in or not, because she seems to have pretty good sources too.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. So we did receive a communication from Ruth. Trying to pull it up here. I had it up, but I missed it. That we are likely to see the bill probably in a couple of weeks, as you noted, but they are hearing the concerns, and it does sound like that there will be an increase in funding, especially for multimodal and the non-attainment area. And it looks like they are looking at where those new revenues would come from, and it's likely increasing the gas fee. So
they'll leave the HU2F formula the way it is and bring in additional funding for those issues.
yes,
Yeah,
it does sound like that.
And Sarah, from what I've heard about that is they want to take an unconventional approach, because if they base it on the last 12 months, because nobody's been on the road because of COVID, but that was the original recommendation, was it was going to be for the last 18 months. But now they're saying they want to go to 36 months, which even then may very well hamstring. So as of the beginning of this week, I heard that they want to take 2020 out of it altogether, and base those HUTF funds on that increase based on what it has been historically, and not take into account that the leveling off from COVID.
That sounds right.
And Mayor, so I didn't know that Sarah Hughes I've always known Sarah as an education person. So I was thinking that she was still with the state she's a commissioner. I didn't know that she had something.
I don't know if we're doing the same Sarah Hughes, but this is Craig Hughes's wife, and I've seen her
from the Bennett administration. Yep. Yeah, she went to Bennett as well.
Yeah, and I know she did, because Carlene was talking about it yesterday, because Carlene went to everything Bennett had, and
okay.
And Sarah was
I don't know
there.
if she's transportation or not. I know her as education.
She was the staff person put on the call yesterday,
there you
and
go.
seemed to be in the know.
Good.
So
Jean.
You were describing the funding buckets for the bills that are remaining. Which
Yes.
funding bucket does the GHG bill belong in? Is it assigned to that hasn't passed yet? So is that a bill that may pass and may not get funded?
No. So it's the and really we're more than halfway through, but all indication it's similar to when council has their priorities, their council priorities. You can anticipate the funds. You may be off. You're hoping that you're not way off. But again, with Ledge Council, with those state priorities coming from the governor's office that are in the pipeline, those really fall in, even though the bill, Jean, hasn't passed, the funding priority, I would say it's more in the first bucket than even in the second bucket in the pipeline, quite frankly.
Okay, that's good, because that will be important to us meeting our GHG goals too.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted to say, so we had some people who weren't feeling well last night at ACES Transportation Subcommittee meeting because of their shots.
Ooh.
And Sarah did a great job stepping in with taking over for Camille. So I wanted to recognize that here.
She's like the shortstop of our team, right? We can put her on the hard hit balls on third. We can move her over to first. She stretches. Good job, Sarah.
Thank you, Councilmember Lim. Thank you, Jennifer.
Let's see what else. I see Kim was able to join us. Kim, did you have any questions? Or, and I'm happy to send the to share the doc that has not just this one, but we have kind of an accumulated doc as well with the links in there, so that you can check all that stuff out.
Yeah, that would be great for me,
Okay.
just so I can absorb it a little bit better.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then Devin, there's Devin. There you go. Yes.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk about the public option piece. And that, it's not necessarily a priority for Broomfield, but for a lot of our groups that were involved in CML, CCAT, CCI, obviously we aren't involved with, but they have an interest in this. Can you provide kind of what the status and the conversation is like that? It seems like this has taken a major front front page attention to the legislature right now, along with that long bill, but in a big way. So what's going on there? Is it likely to pass? How long is this going to, kind of take to negotiate and resolve? I mean, and are we kind of just waiting for this to kind of resolve before we kind of get into transportation and other big issues?
It's just the easy answer would say yes, trying to resolve one before you focus on another. But on this one, that's not really the case. Simply because it's a different group of people that are working on different mindset, different skill set. So really, it comes into play. It's as political, but it's more financially complicated than even the transportation bill. And so again, the drag on the system is the number of people, kind of overall that driving down healthcare costs it's in the court of public opinion versus what the insurance companies have. They have the same level of influence, if you will, that as the energy companies have down at the Capitol. So really the drag on this system is not necessarily whether you move through it or not, right? I mean, Polis is all about that. I mean, if he could get anything done, he won't have to choose between transportation and the public option. But if he did, Dev, my guess is he would have public option as the primary hands down initiative. So I think we'll see something. It's, as you know, they'll do it in phases. It won't be an overarching. They're going to chunk it out as much as they possibly can, but it starts always, like with anything else, kind of that standard design, right? And so that's where the rub is right now, is what is that fundamental health insurance plan that just provide the basics, right? Like those 5 top bullet points. And then the biggest conversation is what the deductibles are. So once they get that, my understanding is they have both of those. What they're having a difficult time with is, where do you live? What's that modeling that you plug in based on your zip code? And people, and so again, when we first heard about the healthcare plans rolling out, that everybody, in the metro area was, I don't want to say feeling okay about it, but they could absorb it. Whereas you have some of those mountain towns and stop that. It was just here, excuse me, just a sec. It was excruciatingly high because of your providers. So they are, I mean, geez, you're going to see something. Phase 1, I would think. But it can't turn into, if phase 1 is extended until the special session, you're not going to be able to see any, our folks aren't going to be able to see any relief until, mid 2023 by the time you get it implemented. So time is of the essence. And the last piece, so I'm looking here at my most recent 2023. Yeah, so there you go. 2023 insurance companies will hopefully have a standard to set a goal of offering a standardized plan, which it doesn't seem like a lot at a 10% less than what they have right now, but that's pretty significant. I mean, again, in the totality. And then the second phase in 2024, it needs to go to 20%. And again, it's all based on 2021. So it's not, you make it 10% and then, right? So it's not cumulative. It's kind of that overall piece. So hopefully by the end of the beginning of 2025, we would be looking at across the board, a 20% difference of what folks are paying right now for their premium without an equivalent reduction in services. So in other words, it's going to be easy to say, yeah, we'll cut services by 20%. And then that equates, that's not what they're saying. They're saying you need to figure out in the collective, because of the volume, and that's why it's public, that it's kind of the straight across the board. So essentially about 15% reduction.
All right, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, it's one that I'm watching, but that helps clarify kind of where that's hopefully going, or where it could be going, I guess I should say.
So really the walking into it, if in order to stay on schedule, I don't know how they can't have a special session. I mean, again, these dollars are huge, but if they don't have phase 1 solidified by September 21st, this is going to push everything back. And then we're going to be in a general election year. So there's multiple reasons on top of just the end goal of reducing costs that really will continue to put a real focus on that public option. Lori.
Thank you. I was hoping to find more details on these bills, but do you have an update? And there's actually multiple ones on the marijuana related legislation. There are multiple pieces out there, and I'm not searching. I'm just not finding it today. Like Representative Caraveo had a bill. There's one on delivery. Is that anything that you have in your? I don't think that was in the update, so I don't want to if you're not prepared to answer those, we can get an update later.
Yeah, you know what? Let me look real quick here.
So searching for some updates, if that's still going forward, if it's postponed indefinitely, or
let's see here. All of us legislative wonks. Geez, I'll tell you, once you kind of start getting in, you get pretty jazzed about it. So let's see. So there's 8. And I'm not looking at our Laura, let me check that out. I can't find my document here. Hold on just a sec for me.
Oh yeah, we can get an update later on the status of where some of those are at.
I can run through them here pretty quick. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So there's House Bill 1058, which is Matt Gray's, promoting social distancing in the marijuana industry. That's not the one you're talking about. Criminal marijuana offenses. Excuse me. That's the bill that eliminates marijuana possession offense for possession of 2 ounces of marijuana or less. Also requires this one surprises me a little bit, to be honest with you. And it's the hearing's coming up on the 22nd, and there's not a lot of pushback on that one. So it's if you do have under 2 ounces, it's a misdemeanor, but it's not a criminal offense. And then once you're on a deferred judgment, you can seal your records. So I think this is one you're talking about, Lori. It's the 1159, the limitations on regulated marijuana delivery. Is that the one that you're thinking of?
There was a bill sponsored by Representative Caraveo.
Let's see here.
But the delivery one would be interesting too.
Okay. Well, so we'll do this one just real quick. So currently a retail marijuana store, they need to have a delivery permit that's associated with all of its store licensing. So this one essentially, I don't want to say a pop-up marijuana shop. There's 220 marijuana stores in Denver in the boundaries. And some of them thought, you know what, we'll just open 1 day a week so that we can get the licensure. But we won't have any walk-ins. We'll do nothing but delivery for the entire week. So we're going to have a brick and mortar presence, but we're going to get the benefits of selling it without being open. We'll just have delivery. So this one clarifies that the store has to be open 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. No online platforms. They want to get out ahead of it so that you need to have a brick and mortar. It needs to be open and full time. It does waive licensing fee for a transporter applicant who so have you been reading about the social equity license for marijuana? They want to remove the licensing fee for a transporter applicant. It prohibits a medical or retail marijuana business operator from, so in other words, so if you're licensed to deliver retail marijuana, that's different than having a license for medical marijuana. What they don't want, they want to keep it really clean in that they want to know what product is being delivered, whether it's medical or whether it is retail. So there's been a lot of kind of, if you can get a license for delivery and you can deliver everything. They don't want it to turn into like a Grubhub, right? They want to keep tight parameters on who's delivering, what are they delivering, under what circumstances they're delivering. Not unlike what council did with all of the additional components that Broomfield Police Department suggested to council and that you all put on that delivery piece. Let's see, that one's just collecting unemployment. Let me see if I can find. Trying to find your, I'm trying to find that sponsor here. Program to support marijuana entrepreneurs. Yeah, Lori, who's the sponsor? Who's the sponsor that you're looking for?
It's Rep Caraveo, and it's like non-existent. Am I making up a bill?
Well, here, let me see. I will check by sponsor. Let's see.
Oh, perhaps it was something she was planning to introduce and did not introduce. Is that maybe?
Could very well be. Let's see.
We'll just have to follow up with that one later, I think.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not seeing it. I mean, I can.
It's not
I'll,
there. Okay. And then I don't know if there's any, if you have details of how SB, did you go over SB 200? That was on there, but the enforcement criteria for HB 1261 and that need to bring down greenhouse gas emissions as we're moving closer and closer from serious to severe non-attainment, and that connection there. And I don't know if you have any like kind of details about how much progress has been made in that area.
I do, and there hasn't been.
Okay.
And part of, I don't want to say there hasn't been. So there's been dialogue, but not necessarily constructive progress. I think one thing that is hampering it is from the federal perspective on some of the rollouts, the percentages changed. The definition didn't change, but the percentages of the containment piece changed, not significantly, but then the time frame in order to achieve changed. So it was like a domino effect. So they're to the piece now, and that bill really is the zipper, right? So that bill takes all of the other, I don't want to say activities, but proposed outcomes and ties those in. So it's not a surprise that this bill would be a little slower rolling. I wouldn't read between the lines that it's stuck or not, or having anything other than anytime you have a bill to do an implementation of several other components, it doesn't fly right through. But I wouldn't read between the lines that this is kind of anything other than they're trying to figure out what that zipper looks like and what that domino effect, or not necessarily domino effect, Lori, the ripple effect of what that bill will do.
Yeah, I understand it's a complex piece of legislation. Okay, thank you.
And I don't see Caraveo's, I don't see anything having to do with marijuana, my dear. Not only,
I'm gonna do a little research on that one because I thought there was that's an odd one because it just sort of disappeared. I'll look into it and you can too.
yeah, send me something. Because I can always, again, it's always I can always find out if it's in the pipeline, or if not, where the conversations are or were. What else? Jean.
I was just, Lori, are you talking about the bill where she was concerned about the potency? Is that the person?
Yes,
And there was a lot in the news that she was getting pushback on that. And I never heard that that was introduced. So maybe she decided, that would be my guess, that she decided not to introduce that, from what I saw, at least in the press, that with the pushback she was getting. So, and the delivery bill, I didn't read the details of the bill, but I was following it in the news because it seemed to me from what was outlined that it could possibly have provisions that would impact different things that we could do with what we approve with delivery. Like you said, retail and medical delivery would have to be separate. There were a few different things that I thought, oh, I wonder if this will go through this way, and we'll have to retweak our delivery a little bit as a result of that. So that's just what I was looking at. Anyway.
It's a possibility, Jean. Yeah, it's a possibility. So it behooves us to continue to pay attention to those, and the debrief piece. Yeah, the on that potency, I didn't know it was her that was trying to introduce the lobbying effort in order to they flex their muscles. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. So yeah, she hasn't introduced anything having to do over that.
okay, and I just got a little update here from someone that it has not been introduced yet, and she's working on it with House leadership. So yeah, it's still to come, I guess, or maybe not to come, but yeah. So that's why I cannot find that bill. Okay, thank you.
There you go. Yeah. Let's see. Lori, I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you this link for this article. It's good. What else? Anybody else have any little hot items? Not even ones that we're tracking, but just kind of from a level of interest. Mayor, I know that you will remember, but from all my days with CCI Arapahoe County Commissioner Rod Breckenfeld, does that name ring a bell for you at all?
Yeah, vaguely, but yes.
So he was he continues to be I think a friend is a stretch, but he was one of the very vocal folks from the Republicans that really came. He and I were we were texting back and forth during that long bill conversation. I have it on in the background when I'm doing other work, kind of like for white noise, only because it really is fascinating to kind of track it. And he's going to be introducing and again, when you come back for a special session, if they do this in September, it's limited, right? So it's not like the session opens up again. By statute, it's like a single bill, like subject. You can have more than one, but it's definitely narrowed. So he's working with Bob Beaupre to introduce a bill that restructures the long bill process, so that it is not. And this has been on the conversation for a long time, but it's pretty fascinating because both sides of the aisle, by the time it gets to the Joint Budget Committee, by the time the budget gets to the Joint Budget Committee, and that's why it's a bipartisan, 3-3, reaching the budget amount versus how it's being spent. Even though it's a laborious process to kind of figure out from point A to point B, Rod is really driving the revamp to make it a year-long process and combine. Remember last time we talked about Ledge Council works for the state legislature. OSPB, Office of State Budget Planning, works for the governor, and they always have two vastly different outcomes. Models are different, the numbers are the same, but their interpretation is very different. Rod's idea that he'd like to introduce, which was pretty fascinating, is to take subsets of each one of those groups and have it be more of a long-term visionary economist group. So to take folks from each one of those, assign them to the JBC instead of the legislature and instead of to the governor's office for budgeting purposes. So you'll hear more about that. That's just kind of it made me think of Cal, Pat. In that think tape, Briggs Gamblin is financing it. So it's bipartisan. So it's pretty it's a fascinating approach. With that, does anybody have anything else on legislation? So are these Fridays? We're hoping that they're beneficial. We'll continue and we'll tweak them as we continue. Everybody have a really wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, everybody.